Hey, folks, it's 6 o'clock and I am calling the regularly scheduled meeting of the Common Council to order. It is Tuesday, November 25th, 2025, and we are in the council chambers of the city of Platteville. We'll start with roll call, Colette.
Tony McFall.
Here.
Barbara Doss.
Here.
Bob Gates.
Here.
Stephen Badger.
Here.
Kathy Kopp.
Here.
Lynn Parrott.
Here.
Okay, the first thing on our agenda tonight then is a public hearing. This is the 2025 budget hearing, and we'll start with the staff presentation.
Thank you. Okay. So we have been at this now for several months. We have started with the CIP budget and then the operating budget. Council has met and reviewed projects recommended, line items, changes and so forth, and to bring us to this point. And in the staff note, you'll see here that there is a summary of the changes in terms of dollars that have been made since the city manager presented the budget back in September for CIP and October 14th for the overall budget. I won't detail every single change, but you can see the dollars that have been adjusted, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you might have about any of those individual changes. Overall, we're looking at total general fund expense budget of $10,168,061, and combining all of the funds, excluding the airport and the utilities, is $24,502,993. The proposed tax levy is $5,874,753. And of that levy, $3,142,922 is allocated to the general fund, $1,885,172 to the debt service fund, $565,000 to the capital improvement fund, $34,692 to the Brasky Center fund, and $246,967 to the museum fund. That yields a city assessed tax rate of $6.64 per $1,000 of assessed value, which is a 3.2% increase from last year. So staff recommends that the Common Council make a motion to approve the budget resolution for the total amount of $24,502,993.
Okay, Colette, I would like at a couple of meetings ago, we allocated money in excess of what had been suggested for a capital improvement project at the museum. And in order to qualify for the expenditure restraint program, you talked about some things you could do. So could you please explain, this would have happened probably in late October, early in November. Could you please explain what these special revenue accounts are, what we currently have in a special, what units, what areas, what departments, I don't know, what are in special revenue accounts, and then how that works?
Sure, absolutely. So we have known for a number of years that the time would come when we would have enough growth in our expenditures that we might not qualify for the incentive that the state offers, which is called the Expenditure Restraint Incentive Program.
And how much is that?
It's about $100,000. It fluctuates from year to year, but it's roughly $100,000 from the state in terms of an additional revenue over and above the other forms of shared revenue that we receive from the state. So we knew that we would always want to qualify for that because that represents roughly 2% increase in taxes if we had to backfill that revenue from tax levy. So it's always an objective and a planning part of our planning to make sure that we qualify and to understand what we might do in the circumstance where we were not going to qualify because of larger growth in our expenditures. Because of the closure in TIF 5 this year, we actually have a large jump in our tax base, and that enables the city, just like any other city that closes a TIF, to be able to increase expenditures without it having an impact on the taxpayer in terms of an increase in the tax rate. So, but at the same time, when that happens, it means that you are growing your expenditures more than is allowed under expenditure restraint. So 2026's budget is the year to use one of the tools in our toolbox to still qualify. And that is to move some programs out of the general fund, which qualify to be in a special revenue fund. So we can't do it to just any program. It has to qualify as a special revenue. And so some examples of that would be, for example, the ambulance service, because we have an ambulance service fee that is charged to residents, which offsets the cost of the ambulance service. Another example would be building inspection. We have building permits that are revenue source that are dedicated for covering the cost of building inspection services. And then there's a few others. One would be the museum, the library, the garbage and recycling, and the aquatic center. And there might even be some more, but they have to qualify under generally accepted, the Government Accounting Standards Board. So we just can't do it with anything. It has to qualify. So this year, as we approached budget and as we presented to the council the proposed budget, it included moving two programs, the ambulance service and the building inspection service. And moving those programs was like moving blocks of dollars. And out of the ones I mentioned, we wanted to move just enough to qualify, but not too much, because if we move too much, then we're sort of using up a tool without getting the maximum utilization of that tool. So those were the two that we were going to move. And then there was a change in the budget. As you mentioned, there were some additional capital improvements that were included. And so we needed to change which programs we moved in order to still qualify. So looking at all the programs that were available, the two that fit were just as the closest size that we needed were the museum and ambulance service. So we're not moving building inspection. We'll keep that for later. But we are moving ambulance service and the museum. So that's the explanation of what we're doing and why. There has been some connection drawn between an additional $65,000 that was included in the budget by council action for the museum attic project and the fact that we're moving the museum into a special revenue fund, so we still qualify for expenditure restraint. I just want to reassure the council and anybody in the audience that those two are not connected. It's just a matter of the size of the programs that we needed to move. It's coincidental that the change that was made to the budget impacted the museum.
Okay, questions? That was staff presentation. Clint, did you have additional? I saw that you were trying to talk for a minute.
I was just going to ask if we could dive further into that. So you were a step ahead of me as usual, Madam President.
Okay. All right. So we have we have dived. You can't divined. We have dived further into that museum explanation and explanation of special revenue accounts. Okay. So we would now ask for any public statements in favor of the budget. And then we would ask for public statements against the budget. And now I'm going to ask for public statements in general. And I do have a person who has asked to speak for information purposes only. and that's Jean Tesdall. So Jean, you have to come to the microphone. You introduce yourself, you give your address, and then you make your whatever.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Jean Tesdall. I live at 130 North Hickory Street in Platteville, Wisconsin. Did I check all those boxes?
I think you got those boxes checked.
Okay. Thank you, City Council members and City of Platteville staff. I appreciate what you do for this community. You take time to guide Platteville, and that oversight is absolutely important. I come to you tonight as a concerned citizen and taxpayer who loves Platteville, loves museums, and loves the Mining and Rollo Jameson museums in particular. I love these institutions founded in 1964 so much that I have served on a subcommittee of the Friends of the Mining and Rollo Jameson Museum since 2014, and in July I joined the museum board. I also give regularly to these museums, and in my time as an associate professor of history at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, I have guided dozens of students into work in the public history field, and many of those people begin by volunteering or working at the Mining and Rollo Jameson museums. And your Mining and Rollo Jameson museums are award-winning cultural institutions. The museum staff, including Cody Grabhorn and Christina Grev, are gifted professionals, and in recent years, they have won awards from the Wisconsin Humanities Council, the Mining History Association, the Wisconsin Historical Society, and the Institute for Museums and Library Services. They have also recently earned the Wisconsin Governor's Tourism Award as an exemplary place that welcomes visitors to Wisconsin, along with generous funding from the city of Platteville. These museums also regularly earn grants from the Platteville Community Fund, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the National Science Foundation. I understand that many communities are facing all sorts of budget crunches this fall, including those that were just explained, and Platteville is no exception. And recently, it was quietly announced that the museum department of the city of Platteville would shift from a dedicated part of the municipal budget to a special revenue account. And a special revenue fund is a much more vulnerable funding stream. And this could be a slippery slope that could set a dangerous precedent. And as I understand it so far, is the only city department, while ambulance service was just explained, this would be the only city department that has such a designation. Parks and recreation, public libraries, and museums are not frills. They are essential. And such parts of our city budget do not create city budget problems, and yet they are often seen as places from which to solve such problems when crises emerge. Employment or higher education may bring people to Platteville, Wisconsin, but cultural institutions like these museums are part of why they stay. The mission of the Mining and Rollo Jameson Museums is to collect, preserve, and interpret artifacts and documents relating to the history of mining of the Upper Mississippi lead-zinc region. And visitors to this place explore complex history at this dynamic institution, along with the 1845 Bevins lead mine underneath it. The museums inform thousands of school children each year through history and STEM field trips. More importantly, these museums make Platteville unique. The last time I spoke at a common council meeting was here in this very room in 2017. Then City Manager Karen Kurt announced that she would cut the budget of the Mining and Rollo Jameson Museums by about 30%. I spoke out against that change. That cut was made anyway. Talented museum director Diana Bolander resigned shortly after that cut was made, and Karen Kurt left for a higher paying job shortly thereafter. It was announced last week that City Manager Clint Landgraf will also resign soon after this change and other things have been recently done. You can see my concern, and I will conclude by saying this. I need your help, City Council members, city staff, and Platteville citizens. We are about to be a city with a new library, new pickleball courts, a new fire station, a new hospital, and a new aquatic center. Let's remain a community that continues to support the Mining and Ronald Jameson museums, empower their talented staff to host field trips from our public schools, inspire visitors to our community and region, and work to welcome everyone. Thank you for your part in this significant work.
Okay, that was the only person who had registered to speak about the museum or about the budget. So we're now to the part of the public hearing where we have council discussion. So folks, discussion. First of all, I want to reassure, I understand the move from special revenue. We increased the museum's CIP, I think by $65,000 to insulate the Hamner Robbins third floor. And I think this council showed great dedication to the museum in doing that. So while this move is, I think, purely for, I hate to lose $100,000. Let's just say there's no way. And I also have to, I put trust in our financial staff that they're going to look for the best pieces to move. And like Nicholas said, we don't want to move a program that is large, that we lose part of. I mean, that we lose part of that capacity.
That capacity, yes.
The-
But
the-
there will be recommendations to move other programs coming in the future as well as other TIFs close in order to continue to receive the expenditure restraint.
So that's other council discussion, council questions, council input. Kathy?
I do have a question just in general, reading through each of the departments. I'm assuming I know the answer, but I would like to have it explained. We went into prepping this budget with a 3% increase in wages across the board. When I look at each of the departments, they range anywhere from 6%, 7%. One of them, I believe, was up 21%. How do we explain that?
The 21% I would need to look at and see what that was, but there was one item that had a formula that we needed to update, so it might have been that one. But overall, we have a compensation plan that we adopted a couple of years ago, or updated, I should say, a couple of years ago. And in that plan, it was identified by that study that wages in the city of Platteville for our staff were behind by 17 or 18%, I believe it was. And the plan itself has a series of steps to try to bring up wages to market. And then, of course, we have to also adjust by the inflation or cost of living, CPI, each year. Otherwise, the steps won't do us any good if we're falling behind because we're not making a CPI adjustment as well. So what you're seeing there is people become eligible for a step depending on how long they've been with us and what step they're currently on. They become eligible for the step on the anniversary date. And so, of course, employee anniversary dates could be in January, the one might be September. And so they would not only get the CPI at the beginning of the year, but then they would receive a step, as I said, if eligible, on their anniversary date. So that will cause a fluctuation in the percentage measure as to whether it's 5%, 6%, or so forth, depending on anniversary dates.
Okay, my comment with that is next year, when we start looking at the operating budget, I would like to have that broken out. Because I was, on some of them, I was kind of surprised, but unless I missed it somewhere, I don't believe we really had that discussion that the 3% would be on top of the step, although yes, it would, but we just did not have that specific conversation. And rather than at this point seeing a 9% or a 6 or an 8, I'd rather have had that discussion earlier. So,
Okay, so next year for budget planning, we'll want to know from if there's a general salary increase, what the amount is, and then we would want to know separate what the amount is for step increases during that year. So there would be two figures. We would understand that at the end, they'll be rolled together as wages, but it would be good. It would also be good to have a discussion about the overall percentage at some point in time. And I know that this year we talked about 3% because in August, when we were looking at this, I think that's what the thought was, that it was going to, I think it was kind of thought that that's what the Social Security increase would be too, what the C.
We're benchmarking
COLA.
on CIPs and also Wisconsin Employee Relations Commission's
Right.
projections for base wage bargaining.
Right, so, okay,
Okay,
other,
then I have
okay.
one other quick
Okay.
question. Under expenses for administration information technology, there is a 9% increase in professional services, which is basically $10,000. What does that encompass?
So we have a contract with, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the same place as you.
It's
Okay.
page, I don't know, it's page 20 in our packet. It doesn't have a page number otherwise.
Yep.
It's just administration info tech.
Yeah, so we contract IT support services to the University of Wisconsin-Platteville here in town. And I would have to look at that. It seems like when we look at the 124,785 as compared to the prior budget, which was 122,500, that is not a 9% increase. So and perhaps there's a formula issue in that percentage calculation right there. But the budget has not grown in that line item by 9%. Okay,
All right, thank you.
sure.
Yeah, I see that too. And in fact, the current year estimates were as of when? Or current year estimate is for the current year. So it's even $7,000 less than we projected.
Yep. It just looks like those formulas are off, and so I apologize for that. We'll definitely look at that and see what the problem is with those percentages.
Thank you.
Okay, other discussion on the budget.
Yes, I'd like just to make a quick comment to Dr. Tisdall. I think I speak, well, first of all, thanks for serving on the museum board and your ongoing support of the museums. But I think I speak for all of us in that we're not looking at the museum department any differently from any of the other city departments. And we value it greatly. And I think the $65,000 that was added to the budget for the museum, I hope that's indicative of how we feel. Also, I was looking for it in here, but I think that there's also been an additional like $20,000.
No, that was 20,000 for CIP. So
for CIP.
that was the first 20. So
A new.
that was,
new
yeah.
thing.
So we're looking forward to hearing from Cody eventually about this project. So, okay, anybody else? So are we going to take both resolutions separately, or are we going to take, there are two resolutions. Resolution 2518 is appropriating the necessary funds for the operation and administration of the city of Platteville. So I just want to review those before we close the public hearing in case anybody has any additional questions. So that one is appropriating the necessary funds for the operation and administration of the city in the amount of $24,502,993. And then, Nicola, does that include the 24,000? Or is there another resolution? Is there a second resolution 25,819? And do we have to hear on it too?
There are two resolutions. One resolution is for appropriating the budget.
Right.
And the second resolution 2519 is authorizing the wage rates, which has a separate resolution.
Okay, and we did talk about that. The resolution here is adopting 2519. This is the 3% base increase. And then that includes the wage increase of 3% for the police officers that were part of our contract. And it also and so the wage rates are set on a chart, a graph or a chart, I guess.
Yes, there's a compensation plan that has all of the steps, but the range for 2026 is included there in the resolution.
Resolution 2519. Okay, so has everybody seen both of those resolutions? Okay, is there any other council discussion on either resolution? If not, then I would ask if there's a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second it.
Okay, Colette will vote on that.
McFall,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes?
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, now the next would be then common council action on these resolutions. The first of the resolutions would be Resolution 2518, appropriating the necessary funds for the operation and administration of the city for the year 2026 in the amount of $24,502,993 as presented. Do I hear a motion?
Excuse me. I move to adopt Resolution 25-18, appropriating the necessary funds for the operation and administration of the city of Platteville for the year 2026 in the amount of $24,502,993 as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt 2518. Colette will vote.
McFall, Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the second resolution coming out of this budget hearing is Resolution 25-19. This is authorizing wage rates for our permanent employees, excluding the union and library personnel and the city manager. This is for the year 2026. Do I hear a motion?
I move to adopt Resolution 2519, authorizing the wage rates of permanent employees, excluding union and library personnel, and the city manager for the year 2026.
Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Steve, a second by Lynn to adopt Resolution 2519. Colette will vote.
McFall,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we'll move to the next item on our agenda. This is the consideration of the consent agenda. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature. If you want separate discussion, please let me know. We have the council minutes from November 10th, our regular meeting, payment of bills, appointments to boards and commissions. Tonight I have Bridget Wallace for the Tourism Committee. Tourism Committee. Licenses in your packet, there were 1- and 2-year operator licenses to serve and sell alcohol and some taxi driver licenses. And then we have a street closing permit filed for Main Street from Court to Oak Street and Court from Main to Irving Place and Bonson from Main to Irving Place on Friday, December 12th, 2025 from 4 to 8 p.m. That is the night of Holiday Magic on Main. So do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy, a second by Bob to approve the consent agenda as presented. We'll vote.
McFall,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next on my agenda is citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. And I have had nobody register to speak in a general way. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank Clint. I mean, you've heard the announcement that Clint is moving on at the mid-December. So just acknowledging that and thanking you again. And thank you for your help as we move forward during this transition period. Yeah, it's been a nice run. Okay. Any other comments by anyone?
Too, Madam President, I'd like to thank, we had Alderperson Badger and Alderperson McFall join us this afternoon for wasn't a walkthrough, it was a sprint through. What we did this summer with the other folks that took 3 days, we did with them in 3 hours. Thank these folks for giving a very compressed kind of a tour. Hopefully this summer, we get another effort to kind of get a deep dive into the different operations and maintenance needs as we build towards the 2027 budget. And then you folks would have seen some thank you cards. It was Government Day, I believe, in kindergarten today. So they came around. I saw them at the library, and then they made it through City Hall, and they wanted to thank you folks. So thank you.
We have nice thank you notes. Oh, you got a stack too? Very good. And I thought we had to pass them along, but I understand that this is my personal stack. Everybody got a personal stack, so how fun. So that was kindergarten?
Yes, I
Kindergarten.
believe so.
Okay.
Kindergarten, I think we had kindergarten.
Okay, any other announcements or anything? Okay, then let's move on to the reports in our packet. Airport Commission. Tony, nothing? Okay, Community Safe Routes. Steve?
Nothing to report.
Okay, and the Museum Board. Steve?
What has already been reported. Yeah.
All right, okay. Other reports in our package were the CIP Quarterly Status Report. That was through the end of October, not through the end of, so
Through the end of October,
through
yes.
the end of October. I only have one question. The funds that aren't spent, the under budget, the over budget, what happens with the funds that are not committed?
I
I mean, I could
would
pick
say
on
that
some.
the funds that aren't used, it depends. So usually there's a delay in a project for one reason or another, maybe supply chain, maybe scheduling something. And so those funds are typically carried over till the next year if the project is planned to be completed in the following year.
Okay. All right. So now we will move into the action items on our agenda. So the first of these is Resolution 25-20, City of Platteville, the 2026 fee schedule.
Okay,
Colette?
that's me, yep. Annually, staff review the fees charged by the city of Platteville for various licenses, permits, inspections, programming, and so on, and have suggested the following changes to the current fee schedule. For the building inspection, there's several additions and removals of fees and changes to the existing minimums and fees. On the library, there's a change to the community room qualification for fee. At the museum, there was admission fee increases. They added the museum after dark and a couple of program increases. The Parks and Recreation added non-resident rental fees for the Broski Center and the addition of the non-resident fee for the pool season pass and daily pass. Planning and Development, there was just transfer of fees from the building inspection, no fee change. Public Works and Cemetery, there was an increase in cemetery fees and the addition of the transfer of right of burial fee. This is a processing fee to cover office staff time used to transfer and track and field staff time used to verify availability. As directed by the council president at the last meeting, staff will release a press release if this is adopted. And staff is recommending approval of the attached resolution amending the City of Platteville fee schedule for 2026.
Okay, questions?
I
Kathy?
have a big one. I want to talk about the cemeteries. Not a delightful topic, but I am quite concerned about the increases that are showing up on the proposed fee schedule. Number one, you have to purchase a grave site, and then you pay for the burial. And the fees that our current schedule with the increase, I mean, cost of living is what? We just did the staffing, it was
Let's just say
3%.
3%.
Social Security has gone up 2.8. The cost for the cemeteries is up 14%. For example, one grave site for purchase is $875 to $1,000. And then when you have to have a grave opening, again, it's being raised from $875 to $1,000. Are our costs going up that much? We have the, what is it, the perpetual fund or whatever, is the interest from that not covering the maintenance and some of these prices? I mean, cremations are, it's a 14 to 15% increase. And I guess I don't understand why, but the impact is significant to our local business, because the way it's set up right now, the city can charge these fees, but the request is that families work directly with the funeral home. So the funeral home contacts the city, makes the arrangements, the city bills the funeral director, and then funeral director may or may not get paid from the family. And so the question comes, is the city willing to take that on directly? So it doesn't have to go, because there needs to be some sort of a statement as to why the city's costs are going up 14%. That needs to be palatable to families.
Either way.
I'll start, and I actually have an item on the agenda tonight under information and discussion about cemetery management software. So normally I'd be a little bit more in the dark, but I've been actually spending quite a bit of time on cemetery funding in the last few weeks. I'll keep it brief, but if you look in the budget, you'll see that the cost of maintaining the cemeteries in the city is $193,506. With the fee increases, the projected revenues from interest and from lot sales and so forth to cover that 193,000 is 67,628. So in other words, the easy answer to your question is that the city has not been keeping up with increasing the cost of services at the cemeteries in order to cover the cost of maintaining the cemeteries. In 2023, the actual costs were 118,000 and the actual revenues were 60,000. So less than half of what we needed. In 2024, the costs were 137,000 and the revenues were 57,000. And so as we were looking at the cemetery project that we would like to do, it became very obvious that we needed to do something about the fees. And I think Howard can speak to how we compare to other communities of our size around the state.
Well, actually, we are the leader here in Southwest Wisconsin. Most of these other communities look to us. But the fact of the matter is, if there was a perpetual care fund that actually took care of a cemetery, then the city wouldn't be in the cemetery business. We would have a private cemetery association. The fact that they cannot make money doing cemeteries in here means that the city has to take it over. City taxpayers essentially are the perpetual care fund. And so in order to minimize the burden on all the taxpayers, we are looking at increases. I did not look at how many years ago we put the latest fee increase in. I think it's been at least a couple of years since we did that, but I would have to review it. So I'm, it's nice to say that there's a perpetual care fund, but as Nicola explained right now, it doesn't even cover half.
Well, then I don't understand perpetual care funds. How, if there's money there for a perpetual fund, because part of I mean, if I went out to Hillside and purchased a cemetery lot and paid $1,000, that it includes perpetual care, what does it mean?
Sure.
Eventually, they're not going to mow the grass over me, or what?
Could
Well,
be. Well,
because I saw the line items, there's like a number of separate perpetual care funds.
yes, there is. And we're jumping a little bit ahead in the agenda here, but if we want to talk about this right now, I'm more than happy to. But in that staff note under information and discussion, it does break out the funds that we have on hand and what happens to the interest on those funds, and also the lot sales. That 25% of each lot sale does go into a perpetual fund. The interest on those perpetual funds, from the lot sales, called the Hillside and Greenwood perpetual funds, that interest does go into the revenue stream that I mentioned previously. That is less than half of the cost. So we're already capturing the interest. It's just those perpetual funds are so small that they don't generate enough interest to make much of an impact on the cost of maintaining the cemeteries.
So if I'm looking at the Public Works Cemetery's budget, I see the interest from the Greenwood Cemetery, I assume perpetual fund, is 17,000?
Yeah,
And for the Hillside Cemetery, the perpetual fund generates only $4,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm sure it is, Madam President. I just was at a different part of the packet, and so let me get back to the
Yeah.
cemeteries here. Well, actually, let me go to.
So I do see that that our revenue from cemeteries is let's just say around $70,000, and our expenditures are about $193,000. So there is $125,000 in levy support.
Correct, that's right. And I think that what we're trying to, throughout the city, when it's possible to generate some revenue from the users of the service, for want of a better phraseology, it kind of makes sense to do so. So like, for example, if it's tennis, apologies to anybody who plays tennis, but if it's tennis, we would charge a user fee for the tennis because it's, rather than charging everybody in the city of Platteville for tennis, that we try to focus it on the persons receiving the service. And so that's what we're doing here with cemeteries, as Howard so adroitly explained. So
it also appears to be complicated by the fact that some people buy lots well in advance.
They do. Actually, cemetery management is incredibly complicated. I think it's just interesting because of the complexities. I found out not too long ago that in England, where I come from, you now get a lease. You get a 40-year lease. And then if anybody is surviving that wants to renew the lease after 40 years, then you can do so. But, and that speaks.
And if you don't renew the lease, what happens?
I asked that question, as a matter of fact.
Get evicted.
And I got a very evasive answer.
We get dug up, I guess.
And I'm not a proponent of that, but it just speaks to internationally the challenge of maintaining cemeteries. I mean, I love the fact that we have beautiful cemeteries with some very important markers that represent the history of the city of Platteville. Nonetheless, to continually maintain all of those graves, it does cost a lot of money. It costs a lot of money. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your questions or if you have more questions.
Just want to make another point that it is the responsibility of the city to take care of the cemeteries and to sell the lots and to make the arrangements for to dig the graves.
Yeah,
So what would happen if our 2 or 3 fairly local funeral homes said, okay, to a grieving family, okay, you need to call Howard's office and make arrangements if you want to go to Hillside or Greenwood, so that that expense comes back to the city instead of falling on a funeral director who may or may not get paid, down the road, whether it may, if life insurance comes available or if an estate has to be settled before that's taken care of. Because right now, those local funeral directors are doing it as a courtesy to the families. So it's sort of another thing other than, okay, I'm understanding the expense to the city, but it is going to potentially cause some, because the funeral directors are the ones that are going to have to deal with upset families with the cost, because it's already happened. So
staff do get a lot. I mean, what percentage did we calculate of staff time from the street department that goes to maintaining cemeteries and burials and so forth? Do you remember?
I mean, between the street department and the finance department, they get a lot of calls anyways. So I understand it would be additional calls from upset people. I don't know what else to tell you at this point. We can either continue with lower fees, which means that the taxpayers
Paying
end
more.
up with more of the burden, or we start increasing fees regularly and with gusto and vigor in order to reduce the burden on the overall taxpayers.
Is it possible for people to come in and, if I wanted to buy a cemetery lot right now, would I come to you?
Would come to finance, yeah.
I'd come to finance and I'd say I need to buy a cemetery plot.
Yeah. Hopefully not use it for a long time.
Maybe, who knows? We're never promised the next minute. Okay, so you do sell cemetery lots out of City Hall?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And if I,
In fact, that's the only way to buy a cemetery lot.
Well,
well, no, because
the
there's a
funeral
third party, you could be a third party. I mean, that's what Kathy's talking about,
Yeah.
is I don't come and buy the lot. I go to one of the funeral directors in the area and I say, and they say, well, where do you want to be buried? And I say, well, I want to be buried at Hillside. Well, then they probably call
they
the
contact
city.
to us
And
work out
what
those.
Kathy is saying is sometimes when I say that,
See,
and then my builds up, and all of a sudden I can't pay my bill, well, how does that work? Because the person now that's on the hook is the cemetery director, because the contact was from the cemetery director.
funeral director.
That would just be when,
Pardon me,
Yeah, I know.
funeral director,
so when someone hasn't previously purchased
a lot,
a lot,
right?
and then something happens, and then their family comes,
They don't come here.
No, they would go to the funeral director
Right.
at that time. And so Kathy, you're just saying that. you
And it's-
think-
I'm only
Act-
saying if we don't have a reasonable explanation, because we did say that letters need to go out and notify them, that if we don't have an explanation, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with upset people. So just try to, I understand what you're saying about the costs. It's more the fact that you have the third party that gets involved in this, and they, for the most part, take the heat. As long as they have a response that they can cite if a family comes in and they say those prices are just unbelievable, then the funeral directors can say, well, this is the statement from the city. This is why. That's really sort of the bottom line. They want some sort of a statement as to why.
So it is interesting because the levy support in 2023 was 58,000 and change. The levy support projected for 2026 is 125,000. So it's interesting that it's 75,000 more in 4 years.
I thought in 2023 it was about 80,000. I thought the. cost
Well, I
was
don't know. If you look at the
137,
revenue,
And the
no.
reserves were 57.
well, I don't know. In the cemetery, on the cemetery pages, it says the expenses for the cemetery in 2023 actual were 118,519, and the revenues were 60. So that the difference was, for levy support was 58. Now it's saying in 2026, which is how many years later, it's levy support is going to have to increase by 75,000. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, I think
I
you'll
guess I'm-
notice that the budget revenues for burial fees is decreasing, even though the fee itself is increasing, and that is, I believe, due to decreased volumes. Is that right?
People go elsewhere, probably. I don't, yeah.
Again, I assume that we will communicate this other than through this discussion tonight.
Correct.
I've lost track of where we are. We are on
Fee
the
schedule, ma'am.
discussion
Still
of
on.
the schedule of the fee schedule. I am assuming there are no fees in here from any special event permit discussion. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right, other questions on the fee schedule? Otherwise, are we ready to adopt, change, or what? Okay,
I move to approve Resolution 2520, amending the City of Platteville fee schedule for 2026.
is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bob and a second by Steve to approve Resolution 2520, setting the 2026 fee schedule. Colette will vote.
McFall,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next action item on our agenda is the Affordable Home Improvement Program Value Limit Adjustment. Joe.
Yes, back in March of 2020, the council approved the creation of the Affordable Home Improvement Assistance Program, which provides financial assistance through loans and grants to qualifying properties to make improvements to those properties. The source of the funds for that program came from an extension of TID 4. So that by law, that meant that those funds had to be used for affordable housing projects, but they didn't really define what affordable meant. So in attempt to make sure we were in compliance with that law, we at that time looked at other housing program assistance, state, federal programs, and then kind of the median housing values for the city, et cetera, and came up with $150,000 as a maximum assessed value for homes that could qualify for that program. So recently, we had a request to have take another look at that value, see if that is still a good value, or if there's any ability to raise that $150,000. So I did basically the same thing, looked at other housing programs if I could find any. There's only one that really fit there, but I also looked at the changes to the consumer price index since that time, and also the housing values in Platteville since that time. So basically, I found plenty of evidence to show that that $150,000 back in 2020 is essentially in the vicinity of $185,000 today. So I think we have plenty of justification if we want to raise that maximum value and still be considered, working with affordable housing. So we wouldn't have to go that high, but I would definitely say we are comfortable raising that value to $185,000 and still comply with the intent of the law. So that would be my recommendation as a maximum. Like I said, you wouldn't have to go that high, but I feel comfortable going up to that amount.
Okay, questions, comments? I think 185 is reasonable.
It might be helpful in the future, when checking the loans that are given, to identify what the assessed valuation is at the time that we apply that assistance, so we can see where things are at that time.
It would also be interesting to, Steve, not only have the assessed valuation when the loan is made, but perhaps 2 or 3 years after the improvements are done.
Well, that might be, I
Yep.
don't know, but
Okay, do I hear any additional questions? Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve an increase in the maximum assessed property value to be eligible for the Affordable Home Improvement Program to $185,000.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Lynn to approve this increase in assessed property value from 150 to 185 for the program. The rest of the program will remain as it is in terms of the amounts, in terms of the years, in terms of the other requirements. We'll vote. Colette?
McFall,
yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the next action item on our agenda is adjusting the District 4 alderperson appointment process. And before I turn it over to Clint, I would say we were actually pretty amazed that we had 5 applicants for this position, in that sometimes we struggle to get one and have to do multiples. I will say, though, that Colette pointed out that we have had this issue in the past. I think in 2017, we had multiple applicants of maybe 4 or 5. And Lynn, I think when you were appointed, you were one of 5. So we have managed to select on, and there is a process. Colette also reminded me that back in 2017, we sought assistance from our attorney, who helped us develop a process for how you select candidates if you have 5, which seemed to be the question. So Clint?
Thank you, Madam President. So yes, due to the number of applicants and the limited time, we had initially set 5 o'clock today as a special meeting, but then we kind of backpedaled on that, realizing that that's not due diligence. So the options for you folks tonight to consider is option one, we continue with a special meeting type of an option, utilizing kind of the meeting structure and flow that was put into place for us previously by our city attorney. The special meeting would be scheduled for December 2nd, and that would be a panel discussion for the candidates with possible nomination and possible appointment of a new alderperson. The council, again, would follow a structured document and such that would be shared with you folks prior to the meeting. The other option to you would be waiting for the spring election. This would require interested candidates, the five or anybody at this point then, to complete the necessary paperwork to have their name added to the ballot. That would have to be submitted by January 6th. This would allow District 4 voters to select their representative during the spring election from the ballot. And our city attorney has confirmed that while we had advertised a vacancy and proceeding with a panel and discussion type of a process, that the council does retain the authority and freedom to move into a different type of an option. So those are the kind of the two options that are teed for you for discussion and hopefully action tonight. Sample motion action is provided. Staff supports either initiative, Madam President.
Okay, discussion.
If there were, if we did wait until the spring election, would that extend the length of the term? So it'd still just be until Ken's
Right.
term?
It would be until April of 2027. So it would
Okay.
be filling
1
the
year.
unexpired term. So it would be 1 year.
Okay.
Other,
To more of a comment than a question, but I think we have 5 people that showed interest and went through our format. I think we should just go with that process. That's my thought.
others?
I agree with you. I mean, it was different. It was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. But to have that amount of interest, like if I don't know if we had waited, if people would still be interested, like, you know what I'm saying? They want to do this now that we are excited to get somebody in here. I think if we can take our time, diligence, but do it on the 6th, on the 2nd. I thought we started earlier though when I did it. I thought like we went into a meeting.
Well, there wouldn't be another meeting afterward. This would just be a meeting for that on the 2nd. So it'd be a special meeting just for this purpose.
Okay.
That was why it became too crowded tonight to start at 5 o'clock and with 5, that would have been,
Well,
so that's why we had to at least delay.
yeah.
Any other comments?
I think Tony makes a good point. And since it's only for 1 year or a year and a couple months,
Okay, any other comments?
faster.
I'm kind of on the fence with it because, as a sitting council person, it's sort of like it's kind of a challenge, burden for us 6 to make a decision on an individual district representative. Part of me would really like to have the residents of that district elect who they really want to lead them, to represent them. But I also understand that process, may change. Right now we have 5. If we move it to the spring election, that might change. But I think my overriding thing is that my comfort level of choosing someone to represent a district when that district should be electing their people.
Since too, I guess one thing that would be kind of odd is that with 5 candidate or applicants and 6 people voting, someone could actually be selected with only 2 votes.
No, actually, the process doesn't allow that. And if we go that way, I will pass out the process that was outlined by Attorney Cole.
How many votes would the person have to get?
Well, you have to get, I think, four to be elected, I think. You have to get a majority. But also, in this process, there's a there would be a limit. Each council member could nominate only one person, and each council person would have 1 second, and then there would be voting. I mean, there's a whole process.
Complicated.
Colette, so, and I will pass that out if that's the thing that's selected. I will say that I did get a note from a resident that said, it seems like you might want to select someone because this council does need to hire a new city manager. And to leave a district without representation during that time period, are you doing a disservice to the district?
Yeah, and if you look at it, the person would only be here almost like an interim, but until
One and a-
April.
No, it would be until April of 27.
So we wouldn't.
So it'd
do the
be,
election
it'd be 15 months.
27.
It'd be 15 months.
27. No, I got it.
Yep,
27.
15 months.
Yeah.
So we just need to decide. Option 1, special meeting next week, Tuesday, December 2, or option 2, defer to the spring.
I'd like to ask why the date of next Tuesday was chosen. I mean, the significance of that is what?
I think that I think it just is a meeting date that we generally meet on. I don't know. It could be the 4th. It could be some other day.
Trying to establish you can push it back that week on Monday, you have a plan commission. That'll be starting, we'll have our 3rd installment of the housing plan. And then you have Grant County Economic Development on Wednesday. If there's appetite for a different day, by all means.
And a police and fire on the 2nd at 5 o'clock.
So, yeah, I mean, if the 2nd doesn't work, we can certainly.
I was
throw
just wondering
another-
if what the significance.
I think it was just trying to avoid Plan Commission on Monday night and Grant County Economic Development on Wednesday night. But, it could be a different day too. So well, I actually think it would be good to pick somebody now.
Searching for the city manager would be
Right.
good.
So we can, if the date is a problem in terms of the 2nd, then the motion would be to do the special meeting option, or to defer to the spring election. And we will, if December 2nd is a problem because of conflict of other city meetings, then we'll find a date that would work. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept option 1, special meeting option, invite the candidates to participate in a panel discussion during a special city council meeting on a date to be determined later in council chambers.
Okay, I hear a motion by Bob and a second by Tony to do the special meeting option. Colette will vote.
McFall,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.
And I think we have at least one and perhaps 2 candidates in the audience. And so thank you. All right, now we're going to move on into the information and discussion part of our agenda. And for the convenience of our 54-year business people who have waited patiently in the audience, I'm going to ask that we move letter E, assignment of contract 2025 solid waste and recycling contract for 2026-2030 to the first item on the agenda, so they don't have to sit the whole time. So is there any objection to that from council? Otherwise, we will start with letter E, assignment of contract 2025, solid waste and recycling. And I'd invite both of you, Greg and Ed, to the podium with a thank you.
Actually, I appreciate you moving it forward. You did not have to do that because this is going to be one of the last city council meetings that I really have to attend. Like, so
I want
I'm
you
okay
to-
with the way-
I want you to thank Kathy for sure.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you. I guess you all know why we're here. We have decided to sell our business. And I was just here getting a contract renewed. And I knew that we were working on that. To you at that moment because it wasn't finalized yet. This was a very tough decision for us to make. As she said, 51, 54 years. I brought a newspaper article that points starts May 1st, including all residents. That was in 1971. That's my father sitting in the picture. So that's when we started the business. I was 10, Greg was 8. So we started picking up trash at that young of age. We've been at it for some time. We did. Long story that we're not going to get into right now. But so we did sell the business. We sold it to Republic Services. It takes effect on January 9th. That's the final day that we will be there. After that, we'll have limited time with them, trying to help them in the transition, probably for the first month or so. I'll be taking out their municipal person to meet the councils. He will be at the next meeting with us. But again, very tough decision. We appreciate the years and years of business, the years and years of trust. And now I'm going to let him talk because he and I'm emotional and I don't want to get that way. So I just want to say thank you. I'll be back again with them to get this finalized, but I appreciate everything.
Well, I'm not a man of many words, so I'm just going to say thank you very much for the long-term trust you've provided our company. And I'd also like to point out our time working with Howard and how well he's worked with us and helped us in our past. So thank you.
Okay, so the item on the agenda for action next time will be to reassign the contract, right? Reassign it.
Correct. It's a codicil in the current contract that they signed that you, the council must approve any assignment of a contract. So that's what we're doing.
Uh-oh. Greg has one, or Ed has one more thing.
Actually, I was just going to say about that contract, one of the things that I am glad is that we got to renew that contract with you because that means I still have a piece of Platteville for 5 more years because it's my contract.
No.
So you know what, I had a question for you, really, I did. And now maybe I shouldn't ask you this right now. So you know that event that happens in May where they everybody bring their stuff and swap it out? Did you put that in the contract?
No, that's never been in the contract. It's something we always just
Do that.
volunteer to.
Can we get him to understand?
I don't think you'll,
Significant.
I can tell you that it was getting a little bit trying for us because it
Yeah.
wasn't working
No,
out
I
as
was-
well as we were hoping.
Yeah.
But I would like to see them do another event like that someplace and
Yeah.
I might have some time to actually help or, plan something like that. I know a few people in the waste business, so.
We'll talk.
I'll help.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Yeah, for those who, well, it wasn't called a swap, was it? Is that
Yes.
what it-
Spring
yeah, it's
swap.
Called a swap.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so again, this will be on for action next time, assignment of contract 2025 solid waste and recycling. And again, Ed and Greg, thank you. And thank you to your family for your 50+ years of service to our community. And, I look at those guys every year as they come by my house and they're always so kind. And so you've had tremendous employees and you've provided incredible employment in our community. And so we thank you for that too. You're out of here now, huh? Okay, now we'll move back into the regular order. So the first would be ordinance creating section 4120 special event permit and guide. And Clint.
Madam President, the goal tonight was we're looking to get some feedback on creating a special event permit to ensure event organizers have considered all city-related implications of their event and to provide applicants with a comprehensive event resource guide. The guide offers numerous areas for event organizers to consider when planning a safe and well-organized event. It also provides direction to city department to manage various city resources and advises separate licensing and permitting requirements that may apply. The application can serve as a checklist for organizers when planning their event. A meeting was held on Thursday, November 6th, and local organizers to introduce the special event permit and allow for open discussion with a goal of identifying unclear sections, gathering ideas for usability improvements, and assessing support needs. Staff took the suggestions from that meeting and implemented them into the guide that you see tonight. The total impact fee for a special event would be $10 of an additional fee. There are different late fees that you see with it. In your packet, you're seeing a draft of the ordinance change, and then kind of the meat and potatoes then is the guide document. The guide document was put together with great pain and stake taken by our own city clerk, Colette Steffen. It mirrors kind of, as it mentions, a resource and tool guide to help guide the folks through that, rather than having a special event total process in which we have to amend a bunch of other ordinances. This is kind of seen as an overarching umbrella that helps guide and say, well, it defines what a special event is and the different elements that you have to kind of consider in putting into it. Some of the catalyst events that kind of led into this event was maybe back up and say that the city of Platteville is just blessed with so many people that do special events, some of them here tonight. And so many of them have been done with firm partnerships, friendships, handshakes, winks of an eye, and all of us having the best intent at heart. Where we've reached some stumbling on occasion is examples of missed expectations on a city side, perhaps on a partner side, and often kind of happen when there's a change in ranks, whether it's somebody at the city bowing out and somebody else filling a seat, or an event organization having leadership stepping up and now carrying the torch. And all those, this is how we've done it, and promises and expectations and understandings kind of get missed. So the intent with this document is help to try to bridge and institutionalize a process of continual and annual engagement with our partners in establishing meetings and sitting down and reviewing plans and ensuring that support is available. If support constitutes added expenditures, then we're identifying those and we're deciding if that is an expenditure that is going to be covered through city and through budget, of which we just talked about tonight, or if it's being covered by partners and the special interest group that's putting it on. So that is kind of the heart and the soul of the conversation here tonight and the intent of bringing this policy forward. I'd like to thank all the folks that were involved with drafting, with reviewing, our partners that have given us feedback on it as well, and look forward to your discussion on it this evening, Madam President.
Okay, questions from, I do have, and I spent some time on the phone today with Colette. I have some concerns about this special event policy and its coordination or its intentional melding with what we might have as a parks reservation. I don't see that there's a lot of ways for people to perhaps users. Okay, so I might be a mom of a college student. I might live in who knows where. And I know my college student is graduating in May. So I want my college student to have their event at one of the park shelters. And so I go online and I make a reservation for a park shelter and I'm kind of done because I get confirmation that says the park shelter is available. I'm set, right? Because now I got my park, I got my shelter. And in the meantime, I don't think much of it. It's November. He's not graduating until May. So now about April 1st, April 15th, I start thinking, you know what? I got to get this party planned. What the heck's I'm going to do? And so then all of a sudden I think, our friend Joe down the street has a food truck and I bet I could get him to come. So I'll have that food truck and, and so-and-so has a band I'll have, and all of a sudden, what was a park shelter reservation, according to this, now turns into a special event. But since it's April 1st, I'm already well past the deadline, so I have a $100 fee that I have to pay. And not only that, now I've got to figure out, do I need police? Where's my certificate of insurance? I mean, there's all kinds of things. I see no relationship, that there has been no intentional relationship created between these reservation systems. I mean, you could say the same for a pickleball tournament. Maybe it was local, but then all of a sudden it becomes more than that. And suddenly what you thought was a park reservation turns into a special event, but you don't know that because you're not from here. You just don't know that. So I think this needs some work, and I think it needs some work between committees. I think it's pretty, for lack of a better word, siloed right now. And I do know I have somebody else who wants to speak on this, but at this point in time, I would be speaking against this policy until it was redone.
I would agree with that. One of a couple of concerns I have is the fact that there's deadlines to get paperwork in, and we're going to assess a late fee of up to $100 if some group doesn't get their paperwork in. It's like, well, why would that volunteer group even want to put on, if we're creating more red tape, more work for them to do? And I know we've talked about it before, that this community, the events that happen are driven by volunteers. And I don't know, I'm a lifetime volunteer. I know that if I wanted to create a new event and I had to follow this, I probably wouldn't do it. It's just like, wow, that's a lot of reading. That's more steps that I have to do. There's money involved. But then one question that I do have is, it talks about all new financial gain from special events. What does that mean? Financial gain. I mean, the events are like Dairy Day Parade, the historic reenactment. I mean, what kind of events could be considered a financial gain? Because most nonprofit groups that are putting on the events, I don't see for-profit groups putting on events specifically here. For the most part, it's volunteer groups, and it's historically the same groups. But I also know that nonprofit groups tend to do a lot of events as fundraising events or just some cool things for the community to enjoy. So they don't charge a fee. They're just events that happen. This, I think, is maybe workable, but it's very to me, it looks like something you would expect in a big city. And I don't know what the costs would be, because if you have to, right now you can reserve a park shelter, but there's no fee. Right?
I don't know, there may be a fee.
Yeah, well, you could
You gotta pay a permit fee, yes.
Yeah, you gotta pay.
Then
Yeah.
we just
Right.
approved that fee schedule.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Was,
But that's not probably, yeah, the parks fees.
Yeah,
were in there.
depends on what shelter you
Oh.
reserve, 25 to 50.
Maybe there should just be on the reservation of a park shelter, a few questions just to clarify what that event is going to be. So
Well,
like,
that-
say, are you bringing a band? Are you bringing, you know, serving food? Will that food be brought, like a potluck, or will it be a food truck? And
I understand. My concern, Bob, is that there's no connection at this point between them. And I feel that the two there should be a discussion between them. The other thing I've learned is this permit is, to my knowledge, a permit you fill out by hand. So it's a hard copy permit. And the park reservation form is totally online.
this could be put online.
It should be put online. So that's what I mean. I think that there's a lot of work to do on this before it's ready.
I think at the license committee meeting, they talked about putting it online so you could have links that would take you to different places if you needed to fill out something. Personally, I think the ordinance is pretty, it's wordy, but people aren't going to be reading the ordinance. They're going to be looking at the pamphlet.
Right.
And with the icons and the illustrations, it's a pretty easy read. I mean, and with the headings, I thought it's pretty easy to see what they're talking about. I like the fact that it would bring to mind things you might not think about, like recycling or the need
Right.
for added electricity or even accessibility or porta potties or anything like that. I think the reason there was a deadline was probably because you can't call up like 2 weeks in advance and say,
Oh, I understand that.
I think it's something that, I actually, being an event planner, thought it was really a great idea for the city. And again, I come from a big city, so if in order to plan an event, there are dynamics just like this that you would have to do. But I thought it would be good for the city to have a paper trail on. You knew that you couldn't light matches, or you knew that it would be too loud, because when you order and you get online and you say, hey, I want to do this party, that this packet is what they receive, or this is the language that they would receive from whoever is doing it. I mean, it does need to be worked. It does need to be coordinated where it would fit with Park District or whoever does the reserving, but it would leave no questions asked as far as given to the person setting on the event. So I thought it was a good deal. I totally agree. It needs to be coordinated so that it is a tighter ship. And I think we would bring in more people. I think that if I can recall, that band that happens that shuts down Second Street, I think they charge, and maybe if they had more jurisdictional boundaries, they wouldn't be keeping the people up in Jim Towers until 4:00 in the morning. You know what I'm saying? I just think it just solidifies us as genuinely doing business. So we need to work it out, figure out how it can be planned out, or how we handle it. But I kind of like it.
It seems to me that there's a difference between a Second Street event and a bunch of folks that just want to get
Having a
together, a more personal thing. One is a
Definitely, yeah.
professional event, and the other one is,
Definitely.
I just want to get together with my buddies and, and have a, graduation party or whatever it is, so, and this seems to be addressed more the professional end of things and not the more personal end of things. And where I see it becoming perhaps an issue is the Brodsky Center, because there you might have, wedding events and what have you, and technically that would fall into an event. Well, it should really be more of a, just the rules around
Bam.
the Brodsky Center,
Yeah.
as opposed to, as opposed to all these different, they don't need police because they're gonna have, a bunch of folks there, security and what have you. And, it's not a, like having bands out there and having a bunch of unknown folks and what have you. So I see what they're trying to address, but it's like there's two different things that are two different dynamics that are at play here.
I agree.
And then that would make it open for when the person calls and says, I want to have a party, graduation party, and it's going to be only 15 people. We want to have it under the shed at the park. The difference is these questions could still be asked because, will you have alcohol there? Will you, those kind of things that the city may need to know could be addressed, and then they won't be followed through because, no, it's just 10 of us. We're just gonna, okay, are you gonna use the grill or whatever. Then you can go through that, and then the person at least will know if things are happening to change. That, I mean, do you need insurance or not? These kind of things you may say that they with 10 or 20 people that doesn't, you may not need it, but I don't know. I don't know. I kind of beg to differ.
Okay, Michael Walsh has asked to talk about the special event permit, so let's let Michael is our Main Street manager.
Evening, everybody. I'm Michael Walsh, Executive Director of the Platteville Main Street Program. Appreciate everything that everybody's saying. You've pretty much echoed what I'm going to say too. I am thankful to the staff and the council for putting this together. I think it is needed. As long as you're also going to be talking about a food truck permitting, also think that is definitely needed. It does raise some concerns though, as the council has brought up. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Main Street Board of Directors who met last night, and we actually reviewed the guide and went through it step by step to see. Our concern is that as the guide reads, it's going to lead to a reduction in new events, less volunteerism, added cost, and a great deal of added time in order to complete the application and subsequent permits in order to have existing events. Questions were lingering about security, medical, hygiene, insurance requirements, and how it will financially impact organizations for the events. Main Street Program, along with other service organizations within the city, have sponsored events to help promote tourism. Many amenities in our city parks have been paid for by those service organizations and volunteers. Adding additional costs and resources to having events seems counterproductive, and the fear is that it's going to lead to fewer new events and even the existence of some of our current events. So we ask the council to consider this before voting on this. Thank you.
That on the surface, it does look like there are a lot of extra costs. Because those were more recommendations from what I understand than anything else. It's not like people are police department and their benefits. It did mention something like that, but that was just, I think, unclear. It's more that it's recommended. I mean, your event could have its own person kind of being in charge of, watching for things, being the security type person that would just be the contact person for the, I understand correctly. And also most things don't need. I think one thing, there is a deal here. It says, what is a special event? And it lists the different items that make your event a special event as opposed to a graduation. Maybe that should also just be included when someone, I should be closer, when someone reserves a shelter for a party, they should get this and see if it's just a reservation for a party or if it is a special event that requires specific actions.
So what I'd like to see is I'd like to see this go to Parks Recreation for their input, and I'd like to see some intentionality between the two so that we have an understanding of that. I would agree that I've been one calling for a checklist for people, but yeah, so I guess I would ask for further review of this before we bring it to any vote.
It's on.
Would it be appropriate to do like a public hearing on it as well? Is that possible?
I guess we could do a public hearing. If we did a public hearing, I would say we should do a public hearing prior to having it finalized. Right.
I think public input's important. I mean, the events are pretty popular and I think it's something.
I mean, maybe it wouldn't be a public hearing format that's, I mean, the public hearing we had tonight requires a 30-day advance notice, so maybe it's not that kind of a public hearing, but maybe at the beginning of a meeting, some kind of public forum or public input session. I would think that could be arranged. Okay. All right, well, that's the special event permit. The next one was the food vending permit.
Okay. So in recent years, the number of mobile food vendors operating in the city has increased. A request has been made to develop a mobile food vending ordinance to ensure that those serving food to the public are licensed, insured, and following food safety standards. The fire inspector has requested that this ordinance include the requirement of a fire inspection, which local mobile food vendors are already required to have. The ordinance outlines the requirements of operating a mobile food vendor in the city, defines what a mobile food vendor is and when a permit is needed. The application process would include gathering the name, contact information, a copy of their food and beverage license issued by the state of Wisconsin, a driver's license, and proof of insurance. It would provide guidelines on where they can operate, which will protect local restaurants and require permission to operate in city parks. Upon receipt of an application, the city clerk will conduct a background check on the owner, contact police and fire departments. The fire inspector will inspect the mobile food establishment. The city clerk can issue the permit after the fee is paid, proof of insurance is provided, and all inspections are completed. If the permit is denied, an appeal process would be provided. Charitable organizations can request a waiver of fees. The fee for the permit would be $25 for a daily permit, $75 for a month, and $300 for a year ending December 31st. The License Committee discussed this at their November 18th meeting and recommended that the Common Council approve the mobile food vending permit. And staff is recommending this as well.
Okay, comments on the mobile food permit. The fee is not in the ordinance, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so where do I didn't even.
The fee in the ordinance, it would refer to the fee schedule, I believe.
You said this defines where a mobile food truck could be?
Yes.
And what part of the?
So there's an areas of operation, which is E, which says a
Yep.
mobile food establishment may not park in front of any residence unless written permission provided. There's I, in the city park, approval required. No mobile food establishment shall operate within a city park without written approval of the locations and hours by the Parks and Recreation Director. And there's also on the 5th page, it's 12, it says that a mobile food establishment shall be located no less than 100 feet from the nearest edge of any building or section of a building comprising a licensed food establishment.
So it does not include private property.
It did say that it can't be parked in front of a residence.
But, pardon me, a private business.
A private business, other than a restaurant, yeah.
Right. Okay, comments. I do have a question. So we have a mobile food truck that operates almost every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So would this person need a street closing permit every time?
The street closing permit would be if they are going to serve it on the street side. They wouldn't need a street closing permit if they were to serve whatever, the sidewalk side or the park side. or if they were parked in a, private business parking lot.
But the food vendors that come for music in the park and they park on the
Right.
side so people can just walk up to it and not have to go across the street.
They're not going into the street to get their food, correct?
But anybody who served food at Music in the Park would need a food vending license.
Food vending license, yes.
Okay, I noticed that you said something about Wisconsin. I believe in the past, we've had at least one truck that's come in from either Illinois or Iowa. So I
Yes.
think your thing says it has to have some permit from,
And I said that in my staff note. I'm not sure that's in the ordinance.
what about food trucks from Northern Illinois or,
Right, correct. They'd need
Iowa.
the proper licensing from their state.
and how do these permit fees compare with surrounding communities?
So,
And what is the nearest surrounding community that has a permit required?
let's see.
A feed permit. I'm not, some people may issue permits without fee, but a permit with a fee.
So my surrounding ones. Darlington does have a mobile food vending permit. That one just says from $5. So I'm not sure what that is. Dodgeville has one that's $20 a day or $200 for the year. Fenimore charges $50 for 90 days or $100 for an annual. And Reedsburg is a $61 fee per day. Doesn't say actually. And Viroqua looks like $40 a day or $350 for a year.
I have a question of how the mobile food vending permit would apply to, for instance, the Optimus cheese curd stand.
Yeah, so they would be asked to get the mobile food license, but they would be a charitable organization, so they could request the fee to be waived.
Is that in the ordinance?
Yeah.
I haven't read the whole ordinance. Yeah, it says a copy in the ordinance, it says state of Wisconsin. It does say that.
It does say state of, okay, so I'd have to change that. It says in B on the first page, the permit category fees. And it says the permit fees shall be set forth in the fee schedule. So again, that's the amount I'm proposing, but it could be changed as however council wishes to propose that fee. And then it says that charitable organizations can request a waiver of fees.
Michael, I don't, somebody, does Dairy Days require a general liability insurance like from the Optimist, from the Kiwanis? I mean, Kiwanis would be a mobile food vendor too, just like the Optimist would be, I would assume, at Dairy Days.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I don't know,
I don't think.
but you would have a fee to pay, or you could request waiving it. But you don't know about the certificate of insurance. So again, I think there's some difference here about service organizations who run food stands for special events versus, for lack of a better word, professional food vendors.
Right.
I just like clarification for for special event, because under this public way that on page 3, the exception is with a street closing permit at a farmer's market with permission from the farmer's market organizer, or at a special event with permission of special event permit applicant. I'd almost think, because we have a farmer's market, why wouldn't we about the music in the park? I mean, I'm picturing, go to the park, there's multiple food vendors, but could the application dates, or do they have to come back and get one every time?
I think the difference is where they're serving it. So if you go to the farmer's market and the coffee truck is there, they're serving into the road, into the street. And I think Colette talked about the ones at the park serving into the park
Right.
rather than into the street. So when it says no shall operate within the public way, I think it means serving food into the street versus serving food into the grass.
So but just to single out the music in the park. So if you had 4 food trucks that traditionally come, if they get a permit and pay the yearly or
Fee or whatever.
individual one, it's a one-time application?
Well, you can buy it for the year.
But I mean, because it's a special event and
Oh.
they would have to.
And that was added in there to protect the organizers for special events, but again, yeah.
Would the permit designate where they're allowed to, does it designate a location?
On the application, the applicant would put where they're gonna operate so that when we review the application to approve the permit, we would know where they're gonna operate, I believe.
Maybe fixed at that location, or would they?
Actually, yeah. But they could move to other locations. If they got a yearly one, they could move to other locations as long as they stayed within what the ordinance is saying, you know, getting permission if they're in front of a resident or 100 feet away from a restaurant or.
So I do have it's no secret that last week there was a food vending truck, actually a food sales truck, on the Farm and Fleet parking lot.
Mhm.
That would not have required a food vending permit.
I don't believe so because it's
No.
not prepared food.
But if I had a taco truck on my parking lot and it's my parking lot, I have to have that taco truck has to have a food vending permit. It's on my private property.
Yeah. Under this guidelines, it would.
If I were inviting that truck, how would I mean, where's the proof of knowing about this ordinance lie?
And we received several calls from food trucks asking us about the food vending permit because they're expecting that we have one
Okay.
and we don't have one.
Daily permit, what's the turnaround time on, or what's the expected turnaround time? Because I see doing a background check and things of that nature, and
Right. And that's why this would be issued by the clerk, so it wouldn't be delayed by a council meeting. So it would be, yeah, it just would depend on when the fire inspector would be able to do the fire inspection. The background check can be done in a day.
Okay, Colette, can you check and see if food trucks from Iowa can operate in the state of Wisconsin without a state of Wisconsin license?
Okay, I can.
And how about Illinois too?
Okay.
Okay, and in your next, staff note, can you, since you, cited fees from other communities, can you, perhaps tell us how you arrived at these fees? Because they seem to be significantly higher than perhaps Lancaster and Darlington and Dodgeville. Okay, other questions? Okay, then we'll move on to fiscal year 2026 interoperable radio grant program resolution committing funds for a local match. This would be you, Chief McKinley.
Yes, the Platteville PD is applying for a radio equipment grant. We're seeking funds in the amount of $50,000. The grant requires a local match of the municipalities. And this local match would be a proof of that commitment if we are successful in obtaining the grant.
And this was already in the CIP.
It's, right now we have $10,000 that we're requesting.
And it's in the budget that was just approved.
Correct.
So now you're just asking that we designate that money as the money?
If we get the grant, and it would leverage $40,000 additional money.
But that is the money you're talking about, money that's
Correct.
already been approved.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right, next item on our agenda. We're back to the cemetery.
It's an exciting topic. Okay.
Nicola, I didn't know you were so interested in cemetery.
I didn't know either. So by way of explanation, as part of preparing for this agenda item, I spent quite a bit of time in the city basement and in the vaults and looking for information about the perpetual funds that we talked about earlier and trust funds, endowments and so forth. And in the course of that, I came across a large number of very interesting objects. I brought a few of them with me for show and tell. I just thought you might want to take a look. This one dates from 1887.
Okay.
And then there's some other ones that are very early as well. And there's more of these in just drawers in the vaults. So I thought you might get a kick out of it.
And what kind of information are we going to read?
So this one is a cash book for recording payments for something related to the cemeteries. I'm not being very coherent because I can't. It's this Platteville Cemetery Association's 1887 with it looks like a Jeff Lawton, treasurer, and so on. And then this one is from First National Bank, Platteville Cemetery Association, also dating back to like 1923, just recording transactions related to the cemeteries. And this little guy is from Mound City Bank. This one's a little older, 1960, 61 is the beginning. The Platteville Mausoleum Maintenance Fund. But I just thought you don't see these kinds of things very often anymore. So as I go into more explanation on the staff note, I'll let you take a look at these.
I bet Dr. Killian would have loved this.
Right.
Yes,
He
he
would have
may know a lot of the names that are in there.
You may know.
Like,
So if you
Yes.
just give me another moment to bring up my computer again. So the 2025 CIP budget included a project to purchase and implement cemetery management and mapping software. The current process for tracking, mapping, and recording cemetery data is manual. It's very time consuming and it's difficult to utilize in order to provide the information that's requested by patrons. So city staff, specifically Superintendent Nick Seng and accounting specialist Beth Van Natter, work with the public a great deal on cemeteries. They often get questions about grandpa, grandma, and where they might be buried, or perhaps that somebody purchased a lot 20 years ago and trying to understand those kinds of information requests. The cemeteries themselves were run by these associations, and the state statutes require that if a cemetery organization or an association is no longer able to operate a cemetery, it is mandated that it become the responsibility of the municipality in which it's located. And so that is why the city has these two cemeteries. And of course, you can imagine that passing down the information going all the way back to, as long as the city has existed, and passing through various hands and from different organizations means that sometimes the information is not very reliable. And in fact, I will let you know that there are times when it's not clear if a grave site is actually occupied or exactly where the location of the casket might be. And so this is an attempt to bring all of that up to date, and also to provide mapping that is useful to patrons and people that are interested. The estimated cost for the licensing and setup is $35,000. And it was anticipated when we brought the request as part of the 2025 CIP budget that the cemetery perpetual care funds and donated funds would be available to be used for this cemetery maintenance and improvement software. And so that was how it was included in the capital budget. So now, having dug in the vaults and dug into the basement and talking with staff, we have been able to determine exactly what is available and what is not available. And so the perpetual funds that are funded through 25% of lot sales, the balances of those are considered principal, and by state statute may not be used for maintenance or improvements. The interest on those perpetual funds can be used and is already used as a revenue offset against the cost of maintaining the cemeteries, which, as we heard earlier in the meeting, falls far short of what is needed for covering maintenance costs. We have these other trust funds. We have the Estabal Fund, which has a balance of $154,000. The interest earnings on that fund grow the fund itself, but it is available for improvements and maintenance of Greenwood Cemetery. The Harry and Agnes Zygut Trust Fund has a balance of $181,563, also for improvements, maintenance specifically of Greenwood Cemetery and Greenwood Mausoleum. Interest earnings grow the fund balance. The Kaiser Trust Fund has a balance of $15,000, also for improvements and maintenance of Greenwood Cemetery. And then finally, the Hillside Cemetery Not Perpetual Fund, which I can only tell you that's the name of the account. There is no specific information. I had sort of reached the balance of the time I could commit to looking through records since 1887. So I do know that balance has been static since 2004, and that balance is $5,691. And I think safe to say, based on the title of the fund being not perpetual, those funds would be available. So we can see that there are ample funds to pay for the Greenwood portion of the project, but only $5,691 available for the Hillside portion. The allocation of the project cost between the two cemeteries will be based on the number of grave sites in each cemetery and the time required to set up each cemetery in the software. So we know that records, because Greenwood is the oldest cemetery, the records in the earlier sections of Greenwood are less reliable than Hillside Cemetery. So we're anticipating that there will be more cost associated with straightening out the records as best we can in Greenwood. So it is anticipated that Greenwood will have a larger share of the cost. Nonetheless, there will still be likely more needed than $5,691 for the hillside portion of the project. So the request before you is to execute a budget amendment to fund the hillside portion of the project that exceeds the $5,691 with general fund reserves. We're estimating that the need for reserves would be not larger than $12,000. Madam President.
Okay, questions on the cemetery software project?
Yeah, this $35,000. Are we talking about making a budget amendment of the budget that we just approved an hour ago?
No, ma'am, this was
This
a 2025 CIP budget item.
And it's a carryover, or
Well,
it's-
technically, we're still in 2025, not for too much longer, but since we're still in 25, we can make a budget amendment. And then we would be anticipating carrying over the amended budget for this project into 2026. We will not be completing the project in 25. In fact, it may be significantly delayed based on some changes in the finance team and city leadership. So, but nonetheless, we wanted it.
So
It made
these are
sense.
adjustments that you're talking about in the 2025 budget. And you want to take it from general fund reserve in the 2025 budget.
Yes, ma'am. And we wanted to bring this forward now before we reach the end of 25 because it makes more sense to bring forward a request to amend a CIP budget item in the same year that the CIP budget item was approved rather than coming in 26 to try to amend the 25 budget. That's actually not feasible. So we're bringing it now, recognizing that the project itself was approved. We have funding to fund perhaps 3/4 of it, but we do need to request use of reserves to fund the remaining portion. If approved by the council, we would anticipate working on the project in 2026.
So, and there are no contingency funds that would have this kind of amount.
We do have CIP contingency funds, and I did think about that, so it's a great question. However, as we've begun to try to set aside some contingency, the intent in the CIP fund was for that to fund large projects of significant size, perhaps $50,000 to $100,000 projects, such as replacement of, major building infrastructure. I hate to say roofs because that's an entirely different subject, but we're trying to build a fund so that each department doesn't have to request CIP funds for a sinking fund for their building, but rather we would have one pool. So I'm reluctant to use that for a smaller item like this. My personal opinion is it would be more appropriate to use general fund reserves, but that's certainly at the council's discretion.
And there's no outlay funds in the general operations budget that haven't been spent.
Not a general, unallocated outlay, no.
So this request is for software,
For
or
the
does it include the software
For
and
the software.
staffing to utilize it, or who's gonna input all of the information? Steve, that's great. Thank you for volunteering.
As best I understand it, and please correct me if you have additional information, Howard, but this would be for the software itself, but also for the expertise needed to help get the information to perform services on the cemeteries themselves, correct?
There would be some limited assistance from the software company for training our people and to help get some of the initial work started. But a lot of that work will end up having to be done by our staff, directly inputting it as
So Howard, how are you keeping the information now?
It's.
In
it's being-
spreadsheets?
It's being done manually.
So
in
it's not being
spreadsheets.
in spreadsheets?
So, I mean,
So they could be
they'll-
mapped in.
they'll be able to map in and import a lot of the spreadsheet information
Right.
that we already have, but we need to make sure that the software technicians understand how we've done the spreadsheets and work with
Okay.
us to make sure that those get imported properly, and then training us in those areas where we don't have.
So does this include training?
This would include training.
It says licensing and setup.
Yeah.
Just asking.
Yeah, I'm just resourcing the original budget request that was approved in the 2025 budget. And let's see if I can pull that up real quick here. And it may have a little bit more detail to answer your questions.
So what I'm hearing is that this is primarily just the software. It's not the expertise to go identify all of the information. That's still, that cost is still to be borne by the city separate.
So, yes, it may take some time because staff time is limited. This is a function that doesn't really fit anywhere. So it's shared between the streets department is actually the department that has a subsection that maintains the cemeteries and also performs grave services in terms of, I should qualify that, not grave side services, but actually excavating the
Opening and
The
closing.
openings.
Thank you. The openings. Sorry for the struggle for terminology. So that is already shared, and then also with an accounting specialist. So it does seem like an odd function for an accounting specialist, but that is how it has developed over many years, that it's in the finance department. And so she issues cemetery deeds, and then coordinates, I think, with city clerk's office, and also maintains the records for the cemeteries and all of those kinds of things. And so she would be, we would be relying upon Beth to enter a lot of this information. I think there is a GIS option, but I think that would put the cost considerably higher. So that may not be within the wherewithal of the city to undertake.
So all of that information is available. It is, and we have a person who is dedicated right now to that function going forward. So
She is, I qualified, not solely dedicated to, but that's
the
part
owner,
of when she gets
the
time.
project champion.
She would be, with Nick saying she would be they would be the shared project champions.
So this is just for the software then.
Yes, this is for the software. I apologize, I'm not more prepared. This was already approved in the budget, so I wasn't prepared for a lot of questions about the item itself, but rather just how it would be funded. So, yeah, we have a proposal from a vendor. We were going to go out for 3 proposals to make sure that there's one that seems to rise above the others already, but we were still going to do due diligence and get 3 quotes and so forth. But I'm not able to answer questions on specifically exactly how the data would get from our old system into the new, but I understand that it would be largely reliant on Nick and staff out in the field in the cemeteries and on Beth behind the desk on the computer.
So, and I guess the one thought I have is as long as we have the deeds for the individual plots, it's not insurmountable. But if we go back too far where we don't actually have the deeds, perhaps the museum might be able to help assist with some of that information.
I like.
And I don't mean to dump a
Jean
museum.
Street.
Yeah. Well,
I,
there, yeah, those are some of the, challenges that we face on a lot of this. And in the past, you know, somebody would come to a person and say, hey, my family doesn't need all these, these 4 spaces anymore. We just need 2. And so sometimes they sold them to their next door neighbor or the person down the street and forgot to coordinate that with the cemetery association or the city. And now you've got these people that are saying, hey, my uncle, my grandfather bought these off of somebody else. And it's more than just researching some records. There's a lot that goes into it. And I commend Beth and Nick for working through all of that as best they can.
Thank you.
Sounds to me like if we get the software between Beth and Nick, it would be a prime opportunity for intern to help input that. I guess I'm
Or-
fairly familiar with all
Or a
those
student
cemeteries, but
project. Student project.
There you go.
but I'm fairly familiar with all the cemeteries. There are a lot of plots. And I can't see our street superintendent spending half of his time entering data into this for the cemetery.
All right, so your request is actually for $12,000 to be from general fund reserves. You can explore if there's any other place that they would come from, but they would, at this point, decrease our general fund reserve amount by $12,000 unless you find another pot of money before December, whenever it is. Okay?
yes, ma'am.
All right. So that'll go on the agenda for our next meeting. And we've already done the item on the contract. So we are at the last agenda item, the city manager transition plan. So Clint.
Madam President, the current city manager, Clint Langrick, called the quitter, has submitted his resignation. With his last working day scheduled for December 19th, Clint will be assuming the role of Iowa County Administrator following his departure. Given the current scale and complexity of ongoing city projects, and you are well in tune to how many things we have in the air at the present, the city manager strongly recommends that the Common Council consider contracting external support for both the interim city manager services and carrying those torches, as well as recruitment of a permanent city manager. To move expeditiously, an informal request for proposal was solicited, and we have 3 qualified vendors that are providing, 3 qualified vendors that provide services. This approach aims to ensure some continuity of leadership and minimize disruption in city operations and our partners during the transition period. Staff is seeking council feedback on the proposed transition process, and if there is consent, staff would collaborate with council leadership to review the submittals, of which you have 2 in front of you tonight, and I will pass out the 3rd. Conduct necessary interviews, reference reviews, and to bring formal recommendation to the council for consideration on the December 9th meeting. The budget for this is to be determined, and there are multiple costs associated with it. Most of them are broken down into costs for providing interim service and costs for providing recruitment, with different ancillary add-ons depending on the level of intensity and complexity you want with those processes. Overall, though, looking tonight for consent that the Common Council would authorize staff to collaborate with council leadership to review these proposals, again, receive from these services and bring forward a proposal to you on December 9th. That is you putting confidence, though, in staff involved in council leadership to choose the right of these solutions If another option may include an actual active action item with, okay, which one do you want to pick? And if there's interest in being part of the interviews, we can do that informally. We'd still have to post notable quorums to engage in the interview types of processes as well.
Right,
Madam
so
President.
I guess it's up to you whether you've got two of the proposals, and for those folks new on the council, we have used a recruitment firm in the past to assist with the process to select a city manager. So that is not new to us. This would be the first time we hired someone from outside our current staff to do interim city management. And just to be clear, we did speak with staff, and the number of projects going on are in the complexity of what's going on is just too much additional work for current staff. That is complicated by the fact that our Director of Finance is also resigning effective the end of January. So that kind of leaves Nicola kind of sitting on an island by herself. And we don't want her floating away on an island. How's that?
I'd add on to that of saying that who we would pick for an interim, the expectation would have to be more than somebody that is dabbling and helping kind of sort
Right.
through decisions. It's somebody that can actively keep up with the email inbox and being
And,
responsive.
I mean, we're currently paying bills with, there's meetings for the pool, there's meetings for the fire station, there's still meetings with the hail damage, and that's just what I know, because that's the big stuff. That doesn't even talk about all the other stuff. So anyway, you have the proposals, McMahon, Engineers and Architects out of, where was he? Oshkosh. Mark Roloff was the manager in the city of Oshkosh at one point in time. Public Administration Associates, they're out of Whitewater or West Bend or someplace over that way. And then I keep saying, unfortunately, what gets stuck in my mind is when the initials come IPA, it's not what that says.
And so, yes, the packets that you have, the one I just handed out was McMahon. The other packet has the two proposals from PAA, and then the IPA one is
Yes,
stapled with
IPA.
that one. The McMahon and the IPA one are a single proposal. The PAA one is broken into two, one for interim services, one for recruitment. And as you folks are just receiving these tonight, the other thing that was on your desk was kind of a little bit of a summary matrix put together on PAA and IPA. I did not have time to include the McMahon numbers in here again, but this is kind of just as a brief glance and reference.
So you could update this and send it later. And
Yep.
I apologize. I should have,
That's,
I got the McMahon proposal and Clint didn't. I didn't look at when I brought it up, I didn't even look to see who it was sent to. I assumed it came from Clint, actually, because I got the other two from you. So I didn't notice that it didn't come from you. So, what's your pleasure? Do you want staff and Kathy and I to make a recommendation? Or would you like to arrange a time when you could, I know at least one of the firms said that they would be willing to, that the question was, did they need to be here tonight? And we told them they did not need to be here tonight. So I don't think that the firms themselves are reluctant to meet with the council if that's what you would prefer, or if you would prefer us to narrow it down and then meet with one or two, or if you want to take a look and then independently each, instead of we can, ask any questions.
I have a time crunch and I'm fine with getting everyone to see those
Right, especially since it's December, yeah. Yeah.
and
Right,
that's fine with me.
okay. All right, we'll do that. No, I saw them doing that, and I saw Steve doing that, so. That concludes our agenda, except I would like to see if we could set the meeting for the District 4 Forum yet tonight. If the second doesn't work, the question is, would the fourth work?
Works for me.
All right. Well, probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock. Do I hear you groaning, Lynn?
No, I was just thinking about the Jimmy Johns that won't be here, so yeah, it's fine.
Jimmy John.
You know, you bring me here on a different day, you gotta feed me, I'm fine. And I'm brand new, so anyway. No, I'm fine.
That Thursday night is Corey's first Lyceum program with Mr. or Ms. Ritterbush. Is that correct? Hey,
Yes, that's Corey Ritterbush.
yeah. Well, that could still be Mr. or Ms.
Yes,
I mean,
it is a mister.
it doesn't really, I do have that on my calendar, Corey, so I knew that it was that night. Fourth, if you want the fourth, raise your hand.
I mean, that doesn't cause a conflict with, me.
Well, it means you're not gonna attend the Lyceum program.
If we're talking 4 or 5 o'clock, is that,
I don't know that we can do 4. Could we do 4?
I would have,
Yeah.
I'd have concerns on our candidates and applicants.
Our candidates may in fact have jobs that they're working. So I would not want to start before 5. 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 4th? Okay, 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 4th it is. Now, I would take a motion for adjournment.
I second it.
All in favor? Oh, pardon me. Colette?
McFall,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Badger,
Yes.
Hop,
yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
motion carries.